that you can take just 5 minutes. Conducting the INNOVATIONS Innovation Council 4.0 of the History of Education Innovation Study. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the principal of the college and of the Department of Pharmaceutical Technology, Ms. Sanchuri Malhotra, coordinator of the webinar, Ms. Neha Shaw, assistant professor, program coordinator, ideal students, and faculty fraternity who are present for attending today's wonderful session on recent innovations in pharmaceutical sciences. In fact, which is the demand of the modern era, we have to be aware of recent innovations going on right now in different sectors, but particularly most of the innovation happened in the area of pharmaceutical sciences during COVID-19 pandemic. I am very glad to inform you all that 94 unicorn startups are existing in the country nowadays, and out of that 94, 42 unicorn startups which were born during COVID-19 time got lit medical line, pharmaceutical sciences during COVID-19. So it is really very important to understand the need of innovation, entrepreneurship, everything is correlated, and which is the mandate also from the Ministry of Education in order to promote the culture of innovation and entrepreneurship across the country among the students in order to nurture their ideas, their creativity, imagination, and of course we have to try to bring innovation at our workplace. So let me just begin with my presentation quickly. I am going to present. Please let me know, is it visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So welcome to this webinar on recent innovations in pharmaceutical sciences, where I am going to consider the aspects of design thinking, critical thinking, and innovative design. As far as this innovation is concerned, how can we implement design thinking when it comes to innovation? Design thinking is a methodology providing a solution-based approach to solving problems. It's extremely useful in tackling complex problems that are ill-defined or unknown to us. By understanding the human needs involved, by reframing the problems in human-centric ways, or by creating many ideas in brainstorming sessions, and by adopting a hands-on approach in prototyping and testing. Understanding these 5 stages of design thinking will empower anyone to apply the design thinking concepts in order to solve complex problems that occur around us in our companies, in our countries, and even on the scale of our planet. So I hope you must have understood design thinking is usually consisting of 5 stages. Short introduction to design thinking. Design thinking is a discipline that uses the designer's sensibility and methods to match people's needs and wants with what is technological feasible and what a viable business strategy can convert into customer value and market opportunity. We will be focusing on five-stage design thinking model proposed by Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design at Stanford University Design School, which is the first university in the world to start the program on design thinking. Design School is the leading university when it comes to teaching design thinking. So let's have a look at the important stages of this design thinking concept, which begins with empathy, definition, ideation, prototyping, testing and evaluation, which is the last important phase of design thinking concept. So which are those important different stages? Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. Design thinking and human-centered design in medical devices and pharma sector. If you look at, the innovation has been widely used in pharmaceutical sector during COVID-19, as I have already discussed with you all, that most of the unicorn and decacorn startups belong to pharmaceutical sciences. Innovation in the medical devices and pharmaceutical industries is very crucial for the health and well-being of our communities. Through the use of methodologies like design thinking and human-centered design, hospitals and other medical organizations have been able to better serve their patients and addressing specific problems or needs. What is design thinking and human-centered design? Design thinking is one of the several approaches to innovation that focuses on developing an understanding of the people for whom we are designing products or services for. This process involves brainstorming sessions, prototyping, and experimentation work to end at a solution that properly solves the problem at hand. Human-centered design is also very people-focused, human-centered, and typically consisting of three important phases, which starts from inspiration, leading from the end user, learning. We have to learn from them based on their feedback. We have to empathize. We have to express mercy towards the end users who are going to make use of our developed innovative products or services. In case of pharmaceutical sector, the customer will be your patient. We can then perform ideation by using brainstorming, mind-boggling exercises, and finally the implementation stage, where bringing solution to life and eventually to market. What I mean, we have to develop novel and innovative solution for the identified problem statement. Once the genuine and feasible problem has been identified, you have to now start working. You have to perform the ideation. Based on that, you are going to generate the innovative idea in order to solve that problem. And based on that, you are going to develop your prototype or the drugs in which the pharmaceutical sector is going to deal with. So once your prototype of the drug is ready with you, you have to present it in front of the customers and users who will be finally buying your product. And based on that, you have to perform the number of iterations, pivoting until you get the right product, right service in your hands for commercialization into the market. If you look at, there are a number of examples of innovation in the medical devices and pharmaceutical industries. You must have heard of PillPack company. PillPack, an IDEO startup, is an online prescription service that is offering home delivery. This innovative startup wanted to simplify the process of picking up and managing prescriptions by doctors. Their solution, an online service that allows your doctor to send your prescription straight to the pharmacist at PillPack. Then they do organize the medications into pre-sorted personalized packets that are being delivered right to your doorstep. By utilizing the principles of design thinking, PillPack was really able to design a better solution for seniors who were struggling to manage their various medicines, or younger patients with active lifestyles who don't have the time or energy to manage their prescriptions. So that's one of the innovations in the medical devices sector by applying the concept of design thinking. Fantasy pharmacy is another example. The painful and lies as a kid. This IDEO project set out to find ways to turn kids into the heroes of their own lives with empathetic tools for childhood ailments and illnesses. By changing painful, awkward kid experiences as rites of passages and superpowers, this project was able to unlock kid-approved medical innovations. Fantasy pharmacy used design thinking concept to strengthen kids' self-esteem and make childhood illnesses not as bad as they seem. If you look at the contour, next one is about blood glucose meter. What kind of innovation was there? Monitoring diabetes is not an easy task. One challenge is there in front of us, that Essentia Diabetes Care recognized. Utilizing the support of IDEO startup and the tools of human-centered design, Essentia created the Contour Next One and Contour Diabetes, two important tools that make keeping diabetes in check a bit easier. Contour Next One is a blood glucose meter designed to look and behave like today's modern technological devices, reducing the stigma of having to check your blood sugar in public. This simple system allows patients to upload their blood glucose readings automatically to the Contour Diabetes app and make informed real-time decisions about their health. So it's really one of the best innovations in this particular area. Everybody is aware of General Electric Healthcare developing some MRI machines for the scanning. Joe Dietz, a lead designer of high-tech medical imaging systems for General Electric Healthcare, observed that getting an MRI scan was a very scary and traumatic experience for young children. Utilizing concept from design thinking and human-centered design, General Electric Healthcare set out to change this experience for kids. After performing ideation and observation for a long time, Dog created a prototype and tested it at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center Children's Hospital. This prototype transformed the MRI suit into a kid's adventure story with colorful decals attached to the outside of the machine and every surface in the room. Machine operators were also given a script to follow to lead their young patients through the adventure. So it was certainly one kind of innovation based on design thinking related to magnetic resonance imaging. The result, an experience that was no longer scary for kids, but actually kind of fun. The number of pediatric patients needing to be sedated dropped dramatically, and patient satisfaction climbed over 90%. Mayo Clinic is everybody is aware of in United States of America. It is related about patient app. Back in 2012, Mayo Clinic set out to develop a mobile app for patients and visitors of their clinic. Using human-centered design, they were able to develop an application that allowed patients to review appointments, clinical documents, lab results, care equipment, and more. The app was a success. It was downloaded more than 1,000 times on the first day of its launch. Since then, the app has also been innovated to further help patients monitor their medications and health information. Design thinking is not just for designers. The key aspects of implementing design thinking do not involve rocket science, but is only centered upon empathy for the user, likely to be a patient or care provider, interdisciplinary collaborations, prompt prototyping of the innovation. Employing design thinking methodologies and techniques enables healthcare providers to revise their perspectives. They begin to see their patients as human first and patient on a secondary level. Areas posing design challenges in healthcare industries are hygiene and cleanliness, lack of empathy while dealing with patients, monitoring stocks, technology integration, patient transportation from one place to another place, diagnostics, treatment processes, communication issues between healthcare providers and patients, environmental impact and carbon footprint, data security threats. It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me by Batman. And that's right. Design thinking is just like Batman, it's always able to look for creative solutions to problems. It organizes scattered ideas and brings about subtle differences that make an impact. The purpose of design thinking is to delight users, and to do so, the process employs methods that mix science and art together with creativity and innovation. It requires decision makers, policy makers to empathize with patients, customers, or end users, think creatively, ideate, and continually test solutions to these problems. What is empathy? Which is one of the first steps of any design thinking cycle. The first stage of design thinking process is to gain an empathic understanding of the problem you are trying to solve. This involves consulting experts to find out more about the area of concern through observing, engaging, and empathizing with people to understand their experiences and motivations, as well as immersing yourself in the physical environment so you can gain a deeper personal understanding of the issues involved. Empathy is crucial to a human-centered design process, such as design thinking, and empathy allows design thinkers to set aside their own assumptions about the world in order to gain better insight into users and their needs. You have to understand, as a startup founder, as a member of the design thinking team, no customer, no end user, no patient will come to you. They won't tell you what the problem is. So, dear students, you would have to understand it yourself. You would have to discover the insights of the customers yourself. And that is the main role of the empathy. You have to get their idea, you have to understand their problem, you have to talk to them what they want. If you are designing something, whether it is some innovative product, innovative service for the patients, nobody is going to, when you have not empathized with your customer. And finally, nobody will be interested in your product. So you have to be very careful about these 5 important stages of innovating something, which is the design thinking. Depending on the timing constraints, a substantial amount of information is gathered at this stage to use during the next stage and to develop the best possible understanding of the users, their needs, and the problems that underlie the development of that particular product. See, during empathy, you have to see the world around you. You have to appreciate your end users as human beings. You have to communicate. You have to understand their feelings. You have to communicate. This should be bi-directional communication. You have to do. You have to talk to them, and based on that, you have to make the adequate and necessary changes. Once the empathy has been done, you have to define the problem statement. During the define stage, you are going to put together the information you have created and gathered during the empathy stage. This is where you will be analyzing your observations and going to synthesize them in order to define the core problems that you and your team have identified up to this point. You should seek to define the problem as a problem statement in a human-centered manner. You illustrate instead of defining the problem as your own wish or a need of the company, such as we need to increase our food product market share among young teenage girls by 5%. A much better way to define the problem would be teenage girls need to eat nutritious food in order to thrive, be healthy, and grow. So there we have used the concept of design thinking. The define stage will help the designers in your team gather greater ideas to establish features, functions, and any other elements that will allow them to solve the problems, or at the very least allowing users to resolve issues themselves with a minimum of difficulty. In the define stage, you will start to progress to the third stage, ideate, by asking questions which can help you look for ideas for solutions by asking how might we encourage teenage girls to perform an action that benefits them and also involves your company's food product or service. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next one is ideation. So during ideation, the third phase of the design thinking process, designers have to be ready to start generating ideas by using brainstorming sessions, prototyping, scamper, brain mapping, brain writing. Different techniques are there. You have grown to understand your users and their needs in the empathize stage, and you have analyzed and synthesized your observations in the define stage itself, and ended up with a human-centered problem statement. With this solid background, you and your team members can start to think outside the box to identify new solutions to the problem statement you have created. And you can start to look for alternative ways of viewing the problem. There are hundreds of ideation techniques around us, such as brainstorming, brain writing, worst possible idea, and scamper. Brainstorming and worst possible idea sessions are typically used to stimulate free thinking, of course, problem solving skills, and to expand the problem space. It is very important to get as many ideas or problem solutions as possible at the beginning of the ideation phase. You should pick some other ideation techniques by the end of the ideation phase to help you investigate and testing your ideas so you can find the best way to either solve a problem or providing the elements required to circumvent it. Once that third stage is over, you have to gradually move to prototyping. The design team will now produce a number of inexpensive scaled-down versions of the product or specific features found within the product, so they can investigate the problem solutions generated in the previous stage. Prototypes may be shared and tested within the team itself, in other departments, or on a small group of people outside the design team. This is an experimental phase, and the aim is to identify the best possible solution for each of the problems identified during the first three stages. The solutions are implemented within the prototypes, and one by one, they are investigated and either accepted, improved, and re-examined or rejected on the basis of the user's experiences. By the end of this stage, the design team will have a better idea of the constraints inherent to the product and the problems that are present, and have a very clearer view of how real users would behave, think, and feel when interacting with the end product. Once the prototyping is over, you have to move to the final stage of design thinking process, which is about testing and evaluation. Designers or evaluators rigorously testing the complete product using the best solutions identified during the prototyping phase. This is the final stage of this 5-stage model, but in an iterative process, the results generated during the testing phase are often used to redefine one or more problems and informing the understanding of the users, the conditions of use, how people think, behave, and feel, and to empathize. Even during this phase, alterations and refinements are made in order to rule out problem solutions and deriving as deep an understanding of the product and its users as possible. This is a non-linear process. Design thinking process is a non-linear. We can have, we can go from one block to another block in a non-linear fashion. We may have outlined a direct and linear design thinking process in which one stage seemingly leads to the next with a logical conclusion and user testing. However, in practice, the process is carried out in a more flexible and non-linear fashion. For example, different groups within the design team may conduct more than one stage concurrently, or the designers may collect information and prototype during the entire project so as to enable them to bring their ideas to life and visualize the problem solutions. Innovative solutions, here are some of the most profitable organizations that have been using the design thinking concept for creating innovative solutions for the defined problems. Toyota, Apple. Apple is a very fair example of which has successfully used the concept of design thinking since last many years. And we are all aware of the Apple's iPhone, iPads, because of their innovative and sleek design. And we are ready to pay a higher amount for Apple's iPhones. So using design thinking concept, building the prototypes and testing them with the end users is of grave importance to the company. Microsoft, Samsung Electronics, Bank of America, PepsiCo Corporation, Nike, Google, these are the top brands which have used innovative solutions for their problems. And of course, they are going to make use of incremental type of innovation, sustaining innovation, and right now, in present modern era, we have to move towards the radical type of innovation, disruptive type of innovation, which has been widely used by many pharmaceutical companies for innovation. If you look at the course curriculum of design thinking, it is about the importance of design and what design thinking is. Importance of design in today's economy, design thinking principles, and what is meant by an experience. Writing the problem statement, techniques to identify and writing the right problem statement is very important. Understanding your stakeholders in the ecosystem and users is equally important for you as an innovator also, that what you are going to innovate and how. And it should be based on the demand, should be based on the stakeholders and users. So you should have clear vision statement, you should have clear milestones in order to reach your destination. Current journeys of personas and prioritization of focus areas is about ideation and voting, ideation and storyboarding tools and techniques, and finally deriving goals from ideas. Prototyping, the goals of prototyping, I have already discussed. We have to develop the prototypes in order to validate your experimental proof of concept. Your innovative idea can only be validated by prototyping. Once your prototyping is done, you have to be ready with your business pitch. You have to be ready with your pitch deck, which you are going to present in front of the investors who are going to provide you working capital to the innovators for their project. So it's very important to conceptualize, applying the concept, analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning or communication, As a guide to belief and action in its exemplary form, it is based on universal intellectual values that transcend subject matter divisions: clarity, accuracy, precision, consistency, relevance, sound evidence, good reasons, depth, breadth, and fairness. The problem: why critical thinking is so important when it comes to innovation? Innovation requires critical thinking. You should have problem solving skills. You should evaluate. You should observe the things. You should analyze. You should have decision making approach. That is, problem solving skills are all critical thinking skills. Everyone thinks it is our nature to do so, but much of our thinking left to itself is biased, distorted, partial, uninformed, or downright. Yet the quality of our life and that of what we produce, make, or build depends precisely on the quality of our thought. Shoddy thinking is costly, both in money and in quality of life. Excellence in thoughts, however, must be systematically cultivated. A definition: critical thinking is that mode of thinking about any subject, content, or problem in which the thinker improves the quality of his or her thinking by skillfully taking change of the structures inherent in thinking and imposing intellectual standards upon them. So you have to communicate effectively with others. That is also the critical thinking skill. You have to be a very good listener also. You should have better communication skills. So critical thinking is very important. If you look at the steps, you have to remember, you have to understand, you have to apply, analyze, evaluate, and then finally going to create something. So if you look at the Bloom's taxonomy, it starts from knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So here it's a Bloom's taxonomy, and I hope you all as a teacher must be using the concept of Bloom's taxonomy for your course, for your curriculum. Design thinking recap. So we have to empathize with people's needs. We have to collaborate with others across different disciplines, skill sets, and perspectives. We have to include every idea in visible form for evaluation. We have to repeat. We have to perform iterations. We have to test the solutions to perfect them, always with human needs at the center. So this is something, where we are trying to visualize the problem, trying to make use of design thinking concept. So you have to try to make use of A4 sheets or drawing sheets where you have to visualize your problem. I think by visualizing your problem, you would be better able to understand the needs and what you are going to solve. Design thinking process, if you look at having both divergent and convergent techniques. So if it is empathy, it is about divergent technique. Ideation is divergent. Prototyping and testing is convergent type of technique. So design challenge will be there, and you have to develop a design solution for the design challenge, moving from the problem space to the solution space. Design thinking branding. So number of companies in the world have been using the design thinking concept, like Design Thinkers Group, Stanford Design School, IDEO Startup, IDEO version 2.0, Luma Institute, IBM, FSU Innovation Hub, are different brands have been using the concept of empathy, ideation, prototyping, testing, and all those 5 stages. What is the problem statement? How might we improve the grocery shopping experience in a manner that positively impacts people and the environment? This is one of the problem statements related to the grocery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. During your presentation, one line was really catchy. That is, that design thinking is not just for designers. That includes prototyping and empathy. So I looked on the word on Google. What is empathy? The ability to understand. and share the feeling of another. And I think this is the main goal of a pharmacist. So, as a pharmacist, the
No.
empathy is the most essential thing. Not only in innovations, not only in
Nahi.
creating certain kind of innovations, it's applied in the medical field, the empathy. You also mentioned about thinking outside the box. That is very essential for the students, especially for those who are having wanting to create something like pill pack, fantasy pharmacy, or contour next me, as you mentioned, the three companies which have used the design thinking process. So now I open the session for question answers. So the stage is all yours. Audience, please, if you have any questions.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, please ask.
I'm T.K. Chakraborty, one of the faculty member in that institute. I have two questions. Is it audible to you, Dr. Gupta?
Yes, yes, you are audible to me.
My first question is that whatever you have described as the design thinking process, for last 30 to 40 years, we have been practicing the innovative life cycle process and innovation-based new product life cycle process in a very similar manner. So my question is that what is the newness or unique feature in this? Of course, you have told one thing, which is a non-linear problem, non-linear approach of these things, which is not very much practiced in the new product development or innovative life cycle process. That is the one thing where I see the differentiation, but rest of the things are all alike. And my second question is that any Indian company or university has adopted your design thinking process as enunciated by the Stanford School of Business?
Yes. So I would like to answer your second question first, that which company has used design thinking concept. So most of the companies, whether it is a US based company, I have already listed the names like PepsiCo Corporation, Apple Corporation in India, Samsung Electronics, Nike, Adidas Shoes, PepsiCo, Toyota. The number of companies are there, not just, but since last many years, they have used the concept of design thinking at their workplace.
But it is
And
the
that's
Indian,
why,
it is the Indian
yes, these
contingent.
yes, in Noida itself, in Greater Noida, Noida itself. So number of companies are there. I have personally visited the companies and really checked that how they are going to implement this design thinking concept at their workplace. I hope you must have understood, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Second question you have cleared. First question.
First one I couldn't get properly, sir. Would you please repeat?
Yes, yes. My first question is that for 30 to 40 years, that whatever you have described as design thinking process, which is very similar or almost identical to the innovative life cycle process development for the new products, particularly in the field of drugs and pharmaceuticals. So my question is that what is the newness or uniqueness in this approach? Only exception that you have mentioned the point that it is a non-linear process. That is one which is not practiced in the innovative new product life cycle development process. So, except
Yeah.
that, what is the newness in your design
Yeah,
thinking
I
process?
have I have understood your question. You are talking about some newness or uniqueness in this particular process. As I have already told you earlier, this design thinking approach was a four-stage process, sir. It was not five-stage. We used to start with the problem statement, ideation, prototyping, and testing and evaluation. The empathy stage was missing. Later on, this particular stage was added in the design thinking concept in order to bring that newness and uniqueness in your startup, in your product development cycle, or whatever it is, or the online service or e-commerce or whatever you are going to offer. Because it has been found that in the past decade, number of startups failed. The idea died. The reason was the founder of that particular startup or company did not empathize with the users. That made this design thinking process innovative, because if you are in the beginning itself, before you are going to start your business and is going to empathize with the users and users who are going to use your innovative product or service, and you will be understanding, you will be developing something what they need, because many startups failed. I give you the one example. One 3D television was launched in last decade, and the company developed number of 3D televisions without having any empathy stage, and nobody was interested in their product, and that startup failed. So it was one of the common reasons, and that's why in order to make it, and non-linearity means, see, when it comes to the product development cycle, once you have developed your prototype or the prototype, in order to validate your idea,
Yeah.
based on that only you can go back. You can, from that stage only you can go back to the ideation stage, and that's the right time, and where you can develop the new prototype which is in the demand, which is acceptable by the customer or the end user. So this makes your design thinking process innovative, unique, and brings some newness in the process.
So do you involve the incubation stage also here?
Pardon, sir?
Do you involve the incubation stage here in the process?
No, incubation is something different. See, it is just a design thinking concept. One of these stages during the startup cycle. So we can think of pre-incubation and incubation in the case of the startup. Once the students are going to register their company as private limited company or limited liability company LLC, then only they can apply, they can approach incubators like Atal Incubation Centers for their incubation. So that's the last stage. Once you have incorporated your startup, so you are now ready with your final product, then only you can register. Once you have registered your startup or company, then only you can go for incubation. You can apply in incubation centers or accelerators in the nearby vicinity.
So that means you mean to say that in this design thinking process, the fifth state or the empathy state is the critical success factor state. Is it correct?
Fifth stage is about testing and evaluation only. Once you are going to test your solution or the product which you have developed, now this is the final product after the testing. Just after this stage, you can think of launching that product into the market for commercialization. And based on that, you can now think of registering your company. So as I told you, as limited liability company or a private limited company, from there you can start your own business. And if you want to look for some financial support, so incubators will be providing you a list of angel investors, venture capitalists, or successful entrepreneurs who will be ready to finance your project or your startup.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have two questions from the audience. The first question I would say, how can a drug be customized in the Indian market? Would you like to
Ma'am,
say
your
something, sir?
voice is not clear. Could you please repeat?
So is my voice audible, sir?
Audible, yes, but not clear proper. Some noise is there.
So hopefully now it's clear.
Not
Is it
yet.
clear now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the question is, how can a drug be customized in the Indian market?
How can we customize
Yes, sir.
in Indian market? Ma'am, I have already answered this question. The customization and everything related to your product or the service or the process is based on the number of iterations. It is based on the prototyping. Once you have empathized with the end users, based on their needs and wants, you have to develop something. After that, you have to perform the ideation, where you have to generate the innovative idea based on their needs. and then only thereafter you are going to work for the prototype, which you have to present, which you have to demonstrate in front of those customers who will be interested in your product. So here, this is the stage of prototyping when you are going to present it before others. And here you are going to gather the feedback from the customer, and based on that you are going to customize your product or service, and going, if not, going back to the ideation, going to generate another idea in order to address their problems, and going to design, going to develop some other innovative prototype. Once your prototype is acceptable, you have to test it, you have to evaluate its performance in the market. Once it is acceptable in the local market, if it is acceptable by the customer in the local market, now your product will be ready for the launch into the market. So this way only you can customize your product in Indian market. You have to understand the psychology of the customers in India. There are number of products available for one particular problem. So you really have to do some market survey also. You have to undergo surveying. You have to make use of marketing skills, technical skills, along with the innovation. So I hope I have answered your question.
I ask the audience to fill up the feedback form. I'll put in the chat box. To come into the question answer session, this is a personal question. So as a teacher, I would be always thinking about my students. So over here, my question is, how will our students get the inspiration to do something like impact concept mentioned on scientific pharmacy innovation?
Could you please write your question in the chat box?
Your voice is breaking.
Yes, yes.
So my
Sansari,
voice now.
hello.
Your voice is not clear. No.
I put the question in the chat box, and moreover, the
It would
time.
be better you write the question in the chat box.
Okay.
I think the time is going to over also.
If you want to create something innovative related to the pill pack company working in the direction of innovation, so what I would like to say, you must have the better coding skills also, because most of the innovations in pharmaceutical sector had been based on developing applications or software development, where you can really think of developing some important app which is going to address the problem of the patients. So it is up to you, how, what kind of app you want to develop. Just like, you can, I give you one example. Right now, we don't have any app, significant app, from where we can approach the required pharmacy. So for that particular pharmacy, I have to go very far place, because I know I will get that medicine from that pharmacy only, located in that particular hospital. So dear students, you can think, you can make a network of number of pharmacies located in your rural area, and you can connect all those pharmacies using one app, because you may find number of apps working for urban areas. For rural areas, you can address that problem, and you can connect those pharmacies in village area, and you can develop the app for, and from there we can apply, and through the app, and we can purchase the items. So this way you have to think out of the box. It is up to you. You have to find the problem, what is the requirement in the market, and based on that you can develop some new app like PillPack or IDEO startups or Mayo Clinic. A number of apps have been developed.
আমাদের আজকে অনেকে একটু দূরে দূরে বাড়ি যাবে আর ওয়েবিনারটা আমরা অ্যাটেন্ড করতে পারছি ম্যাম বলেছে আপনার কাছ থেকে পারমিশন নিতে যে ক্লাসটা ছুটি দিয়ে দেবো
কোন ম্যাডাম?
অলিভিয়া ম্যাম।
I hope I have answered the question.
Hello.
Yes.
Dr. Bhaskar Gupta, kindly wait for a minute. We will be.
Sanchari ma'am, you are not audible.
Is it Sansari madam on the position? I think. Hello. Yes, Sansari madam.
Yes, sir.
Should we close?
Yes, sir. I would like to ask you, request you to give a vote of thanks for Dr. Bhaskar Gupta.
Okay. Dr. Bhaskar Gupta, right, on behalf of this our Department of Pharmaceutical Technology and BRAINWARE University, we offer you our sincere thanks and gratitude to you for your very exclusive lecture on innovation in pharmaceutical sciences, designing, critical thinking, and all these things. You have given in a nice way describe the topic, and I think everybody understood and realized that this the design thinking and this critical thinking, or particularly the designing, a new concept, and that we have to adopt. Whatever we have a traditional practice last few decades or hundreds, now that has been changed in the today's scenario in technology and science. So accordingly, in a pharmaceutical science also, a lot of designing process has come, and that we have to accept it. So thank you very much for giving nice lecture, and I hope in the future day you'll be also extend your cooperations towards this BRAINWARE University or any other lectures or any other programs.
Thank you,
the
sir.
audience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks the audience
Thank you.
also. Thank faculty members. Thank the listeners. All of you. It's a nice program.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Should we close it?
Yes, sir.
You can off the recording.